What's up, you guys? This is JP, and today I'm gonna show you how I fix my deadlift. So the deadlift, it's a very important lift that a lot of you guys are doing. If you don't do it right now, you have done it before, but a ton of the people that watch this channel most likely have the deadlift in their program. Now, with any lift, and especially of the big three, the deadlift is not the most complex lift compared to the other two of the big three, the squat and the bench. And especially compared to other exercises in general, like the snatch, the clean and jerk, those are way more technical exercises. So the deadlift in that comparison is a fairly simple exercise, but there are still little tiny minute things that can become a little bit more complex and can kind of become overwhelming at certain points, even for someone like me. There are a lot of things that I would, think about over the years is, foot placement. How far should you start from the bar? Should your feet be 1 inch from the bar? Should it be 2 inches from the bar? Should your knees be over the bar? I've read articles that made really good sense. I say, oh, your knees can be over the bar. It's okay if your knees are a little bit forward in a deadlift. I've read, different articles talking about you can have a little bit of round in your spine. That's okay, as long as your spine is stable, you're bracing, and it's not excessive rounding. And the more common one is, just no lumbar rounding. So no rounding in the low back. Your rounding of your thoracic spine is a little bit okay. But today, so my point is that can kind of be overwhelming to most people doing the deadlift. Some of you don't even think about it. You just go into the gym and lift. And it's not that I haven't thought about it before. It's that my deadlift, my squat, and all of my lifts are constantly evolving, as should yours be too. You should be constantly making tiny changes throughout your lifting career to get a better lifts. And one thing that kind of bugged me about the deadlift for the longest time was two main things. Was one, I always had, for the most part, especially when I got to my heavier lifts, I always had a little bit of rounding in my spine when I lifted. Now, that's not that big of a deal. One, because it wasn't excessive, and two, it never, ever caused me any pain. A lot of the information that I'm gonna be getting today is from Austin Baraki. Again, there's no affiliation there. It's just, he's a very smart individual, and it's what I've been learning. But specifically about what I was just mentioning was pain is, it's not good to demonize certain lifts when you have a little bit of deviation from perfect form. Again, it's just not good for people psychologically in the gym. I'm not gonna go too much into that aspect, but if you wanna learn more, look up Austin Baraki, and he talks about this all the time. So overall, I just never wanted to quote unquote demonize myself during a deadlift. Okay, if my back was a tiny bit rounded, but I felt stable and I was pulling fine and I never got any injuries, I never left a deadlift session with a bunch of pain in my back, then I never really, fret too much about it. But overall, personally, for my decision and my choice, I just felt like I could get a better deadlift. I felt like on lighter sets, I can get a little bit straighter of a back. So it was always kind of like, what's going on here? So the main thing that helped me in regards to a deadlift is the setup, is just the setup. And specifically of the setup is where my feet were in relation to the bar. So this is pretty much the anchor for what fixed everything to me. And I got a lot of this information from looking at Austin Baraki and watching him deadlift and listening to him. So when you're looking at the bar, the main thing that helped me was starting about 1 inch away from the bar, okay? And you have to be careful of where you're starting at. So if you start by looking down, I'm 1 inch away from the bar right now, and you stand up and your shins drift forward, then the bar is gonna move and you don't want that. So you wanna make sure that when you're standing straight up, you wanna be about 1 inch from the bar, okay? And you can do this by standing straight up and looking to the side. That'll definitely help you make sure you're in a good position. Now, one cue that he gave me from doing this position right here is do not move the bar during the setup. Okay, do not move the bar. Don't bump the bar, don't roll the bar. When you go down and grab the bar, you don't wanna move the bar at all. And that's what ultimately was kind of causing my issues before, is that the bar would move a lot. So when you're doing the setup for the deadlift, you wanna start 1 inch away from the bar and you wanna set up entirely from here. what caused me to kind of fix this in general was it set up everything else. When my feet and when my shins are an inch from the bar and I set up, it essentially gave me the proper hip height, which, because I was always confused on, some people say you can sit a little bit lower, a little bit higher with your hips, medium. It was always confusing to me. There really was no objective measure for how high my hips should be in the deadlift. Too high, you're essentially already yelling the weight off the ground and you're not, lifting with maximum potential. Too low and you're kind of turning it into a squat. But one thing that Austin Baraki said was, in this setup, and overall it's good, is the position of where your lats are going to be on the bar. So when you're down here and you're lifting the bar, again, the bar's an inch from you, and I kind of did it right there. You can kind of see that old habits kind of come in, is you want to bend down, do not move the bar. So you grab the bar, and once you grab the bar, you want to drop your hips and bring your shins to the bar. The second your shins touch the bar, since we're not moving the bar, that is where your ideal hip height is going to be. So again, if I'm standing straight up, I'm an inch from the bar, I bend down, not moving the bar, and then I kick my shins to the bar, that's where my hip height is gonna be for my proper deadlift, okay? So it kind of answered 3 questions in one when I fixed my distance of my shins from the bar. So that was probably the most important thing. So on top of being in an ideal position for the start of the deadlift, it put my hips in the ideal position when I started the pull, which was very important. Because again, if you follow that one main cue, is do not move the bar, your hips, and when you drop your hips, your shins are gonna go a little bit more forward, and that's where your shins stop. You don't keep pushing the bar forward, because remember, we're not trying to move the bar here. So that automatically put my hips in a perfect position. Now, what this also did was, you have to remember that your body and the barbell are kind of in one general unit, and as a general unit, you have one area of center mass, okay? There's the middle of this one unit where everything is going to be perfectly balanced, and you can drive as much force into the ground to be able to lift as much weight on the barbell. Now, one question also too that this kind of answered is, where should your shoulders be in relation to the deadlift? Should it be directly over the barbell? Should it be slightly in front of the barbell? And again, this question was answered when you're doing a lift. So if I'm, again, doing the same setup, an inch from the bar, I bend down, grabbing the bar, don't move the bar, bring my shins to the bar, my hips are in proper height, you're gonna be able to tell that when looking from the side too, that my shoulders are going to be directly in front of the bar a little bit. What this is going to do is this is going to increase shoulder extension demands, because there is now a tiny moment of shoulder extension at the shoulder, which again is just going to increase demands on the lats. So again, what this does is it makes sure that as a unit with you and the barbell, you guys have an even center mass, and again, you're perfectly balanced. A lot of people will try to argue that, well, you should have your shoulders directly above the barbell, or you should have your hips in a different position. And one note that Austin Baraki said, that it is physically impossible for you to be able to be in a different position when you are approaching your 1 rep max, okay? So if you are truly lifting a maximal load, regardless of where you start at, you are always going to be in this position with your shoulders slightly in front of the bar, your hip in that specific height, and the barbell is gonna be over mid-foot, which is about an inch from your shins. And that's another way to look at it, is just your barbell over mid-foot. So your body is going to get into this position whether you start here or not. So if you're looking at my feet again, one thing that I used to do was I used to be a little bit too far far back from the bar, and my knees would be too far in front of the bar, and sometimes that would cause the bar to roll. Now, if I'm not lifting a maximal lift, I might be able to get away with a tiny bit bad form here. But if I were lifting a maximal lift, what would happen was eventually my knees would kick back and I would end up in the same position regardless. So overall, people need to realize that you're gonna end up in the same position, again, with shoulders slightly in front of the bar, hip at that perfect hip height, and then bar over mid-foot. And again, that's gonna give you the perfect balance you need when doing a deadlift. So again, you're gonna end up in this position no matter what. So for people, you know, who start in different positions, if you're lifting a near maximal lift, the bar is gonna end up moving back anyways. It's when people aren't lifting maximal lifts, they're lifting sub-maximal lifts, you know, something at 70% or something, or 75%, they're far from failure, that you can kind of get away with different starting positions, because again, you're able to do different things when you have lighter loads. If you're working with just a plain barbell, you're gonna be able to have the bar way out in front of you when you deadlift. You can do something wacky like that if you wanted to. Does that mean that it's proper form? No, it just means that the bar is so light that you're able to hold it way out here when you're doing a deadlift. But again, same concept. So take that weird wacky form. Are you able to do that with a near 1 rep max attempt or a very heavy attempt? You're not able to do that. If you try to hold a weight out in front of you that's 300, 400, 500 pounds or whatever your personal 1 rep max, the bar is just gonna come slamming down. Again, you're not even gonna be able to get to that position. So again, overall, I would say the main thing that helped me was getting my feet in that perfect starting position so that the bar's over midfoot, not moving the bar, and starting my setup from there. Again, it got me the perfect hip height, it got my shoulders in the perfect position, and it got me as a unit with the barbell just in the most optimal position to lift as much weight as possible. If you guys have any questions, comments, leave them down below. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.